Welcome back to the Cinema Shame podcast. Mac Truck Myers here to bring you another finger-licking good episode with special guest Devon Sanders. Isaac Hayes stars in 1974's Truck Turner. On top of Isaac Hayes, this one has a killer ensemble cast. Oh mama. Nichelle Nichols goes full speed in full swear track, and friend of bondage Yaphet Kotto also turns in a typical, for him, standout performance. Even though Isaac Hayes didn't win the Oscar for this score, treat yourself to a spin or two of the soundtrack after you listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast. It's a mean jive. All right, let's get this one rolling.
Welcome to a very exciting episode of Cinema Shame. I'm Alan Mott, here with our co-host and founder, James Patrick, and special guest, Devon Sanders. He's the co-host of the Top Guys podcast and the writer responsible for the Seven Hells comic book blog, which back in the day celebrated iconic characters like Lady Cop and the Viking Commando. He's also responsible for writing one of my favorite essays about Wonder Woman, my favorite fictional character of all time. It's true, just look at my right forearm. And when he told me what film he considered his cinema shame, I'm pretty sure he heard me squeal with delight all the way in his home in Washington, D.C., because it's easily one of my favorite films in one of my favorite film genres. Hi, Devon. Thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about Truck Turner.
Hide your mamas. Big brother is coming. And he's coming on strong. Isaac Hayes, the big brother of soul, is making a new kind of music. And it's mean jive.
All right, y'all, let's move. If anybody asks you what happened, tell them you've been hit by a truck. Mac Truck Turner.
When he's hottest, he's the coolest.
Hey,
Could have brought me some flowers.
I got some beer.
No problem. It's nice to finally actually meet you. Like, this is not face to face, but you know, there's a history that goes back almost 15 years or so.
15, yeah, it's been a while, back to the Scipio Garling days of.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
That's a book by itself.
That's a whole nother life.
So,
I'd like to jump in here and say you're outnumbered again.
Yeah,
I just want to make mention.
James likes to point out when there are more Americans than Canadians on the podcast, because it's rarer than you would expect for an American-based podcast.
Well, it starts uneven because the third contributor to the podcast, who does our intros, and we keep avoiding somehow getting her on the show proper, but she is in Toronto. And I am always the odd one out. So I just like to let it be known when you are again outnumbered and you are relegated to the proper minority on this thing it is right now.
I am a native Washingtonian, so capital of the U.S., so that makes me like a double American.
It's 3-1 now.
Could have brought me some flowers.
I got some beer.
What was your introduction to the blaxploitation genre? Like, when did you become aware that this was a thing? Like, was it like when you were a young kid, or was it something more that you found out as like sort of like an adult? Like, was this a part of your life growing up, or is it something pretty much that you had to sort of discover?
No, it was absolutely part of my life. Matter of fact, I still live in pretty much the same neighborhood that I did when I was a kid. I've only moved about maybe 7 blocks away from where I actually grew up. And where I grew up, there was a movie theater called the Ontario. And the Ontario...
Canada again.
Yeah. And the Ontario would actually play like triple features on Saturdays. So any given Saturday, Oh, this is insane for a kid. You would see posters of like movies that were either there or coming up, and it would be like "I Spit on Your Grave," or there would sometimes be like a triple kung fu flick action thing. I remember the first movie I saw there was Penitentiary, featuring oh God, what was his name?
Leon Isaac Kennedy.
Yes, Leon Isaac Kennedy, a movie I should not have been seeing when I was a kid, but yeah.
Look here, Jess, I'm telling you, I can take this sissy by myself, man. I can feel it, Jess. Ain't no bronc I can't bust, Jess. I don't know. Yeah, there's just something about this dude that tells me, push him. But you watch in the morning. Brother gonna ask for the salt and pepper. His voice gonna be up by watching.
He made a very infamous movie called Welcome Home, Brother Charles. And the premise of that movie is it's about, I haven't seen it, but I just know it's about a black man who has the ability to extend his penis for as far as he wants. And he uses it to get revenge by actually strangling people with it.
Welcome home, Brother Charles. A motion picture about the way it is and the way some people think it should be.
But yeah, I grew up in the 70s and watching like kung fu flicks and blaxploitation movies. So, I grew up with things like the Mac and of course Truck Turner. And Blackula, I remember seeing that when I was a kid. And in retrospect, I'm actually starting to realize that I had the same existence as like a lot of members of the Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah. Where it was like you just went to like different movie theaters and just sat in there all day watching like some of the worst movies that you should not have been watching when you were a kid. But the only difference is that like I can't rap at all. And but yeah, that was my introduction to blaxploitation very early on.
Because I got into like sort of exploitation movies through books. Mm-hmm. Because I always say my origin story is I picked up this book called Cult Movies 2 off a library shelf when I was 10 years old. And I opened it up, and literally on the first page that I opened it up to, there was a naked woman on it. So I was like, there are books in the library with naked ladies in them. And they're about movies, and I like movies. Mm-hmm. So I got all of the books, and that's how I started like reading about like sort of this genre. But I think it was more probably around my teens when I started actually seeking them out and watching them. But in the case of Truck Turner, I didn't see it until about 2010 and 2011. And I'm just going to sort of like halt everything because I've got an anecdote that sort of partially explains like the movie is awesome. But there is a specific sort of maudlin, sentimental reason why it means so much to me. And I may choke up telling it because it is that kind of story. But growing up, there was
he does this. It's okay. It's like every other episode.
I've teared up a lot. Like people get used to it. It's a drinking game now. Like you have to chug your whole glass if you if Allan starts crying. So growing up, there was this guy named Darren Zanko who we shared a bunch of relatives, but we weren't actually related to each other. But because we shared the relatives, we spent like a lot of time at summer cabins and stuff like that growing up. And he was slightly older than I am, but we had sort of a very parallel sort of like existence. And as I got older, he would just sort of like reappear in my life over and over again. We were never really friends. We were never really close. But we were both writers, and because of that, we ended up being published by the same publisher. We both have these like every now and then we would come across each other, and like the drunkest night of my life I actually spent with him because he was someone who enjoyed his alcohol. And then around 2010, he got throat cancer, and I sort of reached out to him, and I was like, hey, we should do something. He didn't connect. And then finally he sort of reached out. It's like, dude, we really have to get together. And so I went over to his parents' place, and they weren't there. And it was just the two of us. And I brought this huge stack of movies that I had burned onto DVD. and we decided we'd watch a couple of them. And the first one we watched was Cotton Comes to Harlem, which was amazing. It was a perfect first choice. That's probably my second favorite movie in the genre. To me, it's more like it almost predates it. It's almost like the beginning, like sort of the Shaft era before it sort of solidified as a genre. And then we tried watching this really terrible Italian sci-fi movie, and we got 5 minutes in, and he was basically, no, I am not going to waste my time on this. and then we tried the first Reb Brown Captain America TV movie, and we got 10 minutes into that before he was like, no, I am not wasting my time on this. So my fourth attempt I put in was Truck Turner, and that once he put on the shirt with that the cat had pissed on, we were like, okay, we're in. This movie has us, and we just laughed, and like we just thought it was the best movie ever. And then about a couple months later, he passed away, and I just, because we had never really been close and never really had been friends, but we had this weird connection, I just felt really honored that he had basically said, like, I'm going to give you one of the last days of my life. And that's how we spent it. And so for a while after that, I was like sort of wondering, like, was Truck Turner even that good? Or was it just a case of like, sort of the moment and like sort of like sharing it with him? But then I rewatched it, and it's like, no, it's really that fucking good.
Francis, I forgot to feed you last night. I'm sorry about that. You pissed on my shirt. My last goddamn shirt. You fucking ass son of a bitch. Get your ass off here.
It is an insane, ridiculous movie.
Yeah.
Like, it just should not even exist, but I am so thankful that it actually does exist.
Yeah, because I think it's like if I were to introduce someone to the genre, I think it's probably the best one to start off with, because it doesn't have like any of sort of like some of them like have sort of like, really dead spots or just sort of really wonky plots. Like from a plot point of view, it's a machine. It just keeps moving forward and forward. Everything just sort of is there for a purpose. There's not a single boring moment, but also it has like sort of all of the joys of the genre in a way that also feel unique to it. Like it doesn't feel like it's riffing on other movies as much as it's its own complete thing. Like to me, it almost feels like a Marvel movie in that, because like he's a superhero in a way, but he's a flawed superhero. He's not. He's not Superman. He's like Power Man. Like he's like a guy who doesn't. He has this job and he's really good at it, but he's also really bad at life. Like
Right.
And the way they established that with like right from the start, like the movie opens with him getting up and like his apartment is a mess, and he has this cat and he puts on this shirt, and he's like, Did you piss on my last good shirt?
Francis the cat. Yeah.
Francis the cat. And you feel bad because as soon as they introduce the cat and the cat becomes a recurring thing, that cat's a goner. There's no way that cat is going to make it to the end of the movie.
Nobody takes more grief in this movie than Francis the cat.
Because either part of me like wonders like if those scenes were improvised with the cat, or if the cat was just an unusually good cat actor. Because you don't watching it, and most times when you see a cat in this sort of situation, you can kind of in your mind's eye see the trainer off screen, like doing something to get it to do it. Whereas the cat is totally natural, and there's no moment where you go like, oh, that was an acting cat. Like this just feels like an actual cat in real life.
Well, the cat. So like rewatching it today, and I had forgotten about the cat, right? So when the cat pops in repeatedly, I decided there would be no better double feature than this and The Long Goodbye.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it. That's the double feature I want to see.
Yeah. Right
now. Tertiary cat characters that are still essential to the plot.
Yeah.
I've seen some cat foods in there. Hey, excuse me, I don't see any Curry brand cat food.
So what? Curry brand cat food.
Hey,
It happens to
can you
be the
spell
only
that for
kind
me,
of food.
please?
Yeah, Curry brand. C-O-U-R.
Oh, we're all of that.
Curry
Why
brand.
don't you get this, mister? All this shit is the same anyway.
Oh, yeah? You don't happen to have a cat by any chance?
What
do
do I
you?
need a cat for? I got a girl.
When I saw it as a kid, it really didn't hit me.
Hmm.
But then, like most things in your 20s, weed is involved.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting over at a friend's house, and we were high, and he just throws on Truck Turner. And time is a thief. So when I was a kid, it did not click that Dorinda was Nichelle Nichols.
Yeah.
So imagine being in your mid-20s, high as F, watching Lieutenant Uhura just saying like the most ludicrous nonsense. And how is this a no cursing podcast?
I've already sworn several times.
Okay. And when she is telling her hoes
Yeah.
that you need to get out there and shake it proper,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my God, how did I miss this?
And the
And
white
you just-
pantsuit.
In a white
yeah.
pantsuit.
That was amazing.
The thing I noted, like watching her again yesterday, was I think one of the things I love most about this genre, and it's sort of like it's a bittersweet thing, is that you had these really talented black actors
Yes.
who just couldn't get a role worthy of their talents. So when they were in a movie like this, they just fucking went for it.
Yeah.
Like they
exactly.
were they just like didn't hold anything back. And so there are moments in these films that are almost positively Shakespearean because they are giving that level of a performance, because yes, she's playing like a madam, but she is playing it like she would if she was in King Lear. Like it is, it is that
Exactly.
level of performance.
We are family. And that's what we're gonna stay. I got important business out there today. And when I call you, I want you to come out there and shake your asses proper. Do you hear?
Of performance. And the same is true of Yaphet Kotto in this.
Oh.
Like Yaphet Kotto is so
Duke.
fucking good in this movie.
Yeah. Duke is just my God.
Yeah.
Like when we get to that scene where there's like the Legion of Doom version of pimps sitting there at the table, and Duke is just like, saying, well, I'm handsome and I'm pretty and I got money, and it's just like, oh my God.
He's
like
blue.
who would
Harvard Blue.
Harvard Blue. That's right. Harvard Blue, my bad. And I just remember just thinking, seeing this like the second time when I was like in my 20s and high off my ass, just going, oh my God, why this is like an advertisement for pimping.
Yeah.
It's just like, why wouldn't you want to be a pimp?
I mean, for me, like as much as I love Yaphet Kotto, for me, the thing that made me most want to be a pimp in this is the white pimp with the diamond crusted eye patch. Like, and the fact that he had matching eye patches for each of his outfit.
For every outfit.
That is something I would do. If I needed an eye patch, I would have multiple eye patches that would match every different.
Now, I would not be opposed to like 70s leisure wear coming back.
Yeah.
Now that we have the tech to actually like have breathable fabrics, why not? Let's do it.
I mean, it flicks the flammability though. I mean, that may still be an issue.
I mean, even when you have Scatman Crothers like pulling off an outfit, like that is so rare that he got to play a character who was that.
I know. I remember, like when I was taking notes yesterday, when he popped up, I literally, he's Duke. Okay, Scatman Crothers, Duke, Impossible Nat King Cole toupee.
Yeah.
Like, what was that thing on his head?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you got one of the greatest character actors of all time, and like your thing is, oh, I think he needs a wig. and it's not even a good wig.
Yeah.
Like, this man was known for being bald.
Yeah.
And they just slather this thing onto his head. There's like no part that looks real anywhere on it.
Yeah.
But you're just sitting there, I mean, as many great lines as he had, I really couldn't recall him because of that damn toupee. That toupee was like taking up all of the space in that damn scene.
It's a good character choice, though, because he's like basically a retired pimp. So he's got a little bit. He's definitely wearing the clothes. He's got the vanity. So you can see him like, but maybe not having the money to buy the best toupee.
Oh, I've lived hard, and it shows.
So yeah. So the basically the plot is that Truck Turner, Mac Truck Turner, that's his name, Mac Truck. I mean, that's that's the thing. Is he's a bounty hunter who makes $50 a caller. And he works with his partner, and it begins with them going after this guy who's on a military base, who's jumped bail after raping a 13-year-old girl. And you have this like scene where the army general is sort of like, he's a good guy, we're not gonna let him go. Actually, no. The part we have the great thing we have to talk about is the scene with the two MPs where they're not going to let him on the base. And so the Truck is sort of like, fuck it. He just drives past the barrier, and his partner is like ducking down because they're going to get shot at. and he's going like, I need a new tire. Like, I hope they go for the back left tire. Right. I hope they go for the back left tire. And the guy shoots the back left tire. And in the next shot, you see the MP putting on a new tire onto the car because clearly like he deserves to be there. And like the other MP was sort of like, I told you, we should have just called it general and got it. And like, because there's a lot of like, one of the things I like about this movie is that there's a lot of casual racism in it, but it's always Truck is always the one who comes out on top. He's never sort of like the he's never ultimately the victim. Like in that case, like when he finally arrests the child molester, the guy's in the back, and he's like just every racial epithet, and like he's like, I bet you wouldn't talk to me like that if you didn't have these cuffs on. And then you immediately cut to like him without the cuffs and Truck just beating the shit out of him. Yeah. And then you have this great shot of like the guy's leg sticking out of the back of this convertible as they're driving him to jail.
And what I love about that scene is like it was pretty much, it looked like it was just guerrilla filming.
Yeah.
And so there's this car with two black men in it. And there's this pair of white legs sticking out the back of the car. And you just see in the foreground this white woman kind of looking back like, it's just for me personally. I always do the math on these things, and I'm like, oh, we're only like 9 years removed from like the Civil Rights Act. So saying something like this is probably like, oh, okay.
Well, the one like there are a couple of moments here that definitely feel guerrilla style. The one I noted at the beginning is during sort of the opening, like I call it the urban montage, where they're establishing like sort of like where this takes place, and you see this sort of bum fight, and it's one of those things where it's such a bad fight that you feel like they just brought a camera to that area and filmed some real bums fighting, because if they actually tried to be a fight, it would be a much better looking fight.
Yeah, and you know, another note that I wrote down about that when they do the establishing shots, I just wrote down the bail bond district. Yeah, because everywhere you looked, wherever they were, Truck and his partner Jerry were. Yeah, it was just bail bond signs as far as like the eye could see.
So, you have the great scene in the bail bond office with the woman who's getting the bond for her husband who's been arrested for drunk driving, and it's $100, but she only has 75. And you go, and the bail bondsman, do you have a credit card?
You take food stamps?
I always wonder with these movies, because like the credits are never easily seen, but who the hell was writing these things? Were these guys just?
One of the biggest discoveries I had, like doing some like quick research before we recorded this, is finding out that the person who has the story credit on the film, it's like story credit is Jerry Wilkes, But Jerry Wilkes was actually an actress named Lee Chapman. Her most famous screenplay that she wrote is a film called Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, which is a Peter Fonda sort of road race movie. And it's one of those things where an actress turned writer, I'll look her up. And I Google image searched her and my jaw literally hit the floor. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm obsessed with you now, because she is truly a gorgeous woman. And so the idea that the idea of Truck Turner just came from her brain was sort of I want to know you. You're dead now, but I still want to know you. I'm going to build a time machine so I can be your friend, because there is something here. She didn't end up writing. I think she just wrote the treatment. Okay. And then I don't know too much about the two guys who wrote this. But I think one of the things I like about this movie is I feel like parts of it have to be improvised, because some of the lines are just so even stuff when they get pulled over for speeding. And the cop asked Jerry, is this your car?
A finance company lets me drive it.
It's still lines like that are just that good, but just so casually tossed off. It's not if you're not paying attention, you won't even hear them.
I think a lot of that is owed to the director.
Oh yeah.
Kaplan came out of the Corman School of filmmaking, so you know what kind of scripts, blueprints he was working with there, which were, maybe it's a script. Yeah. Maybe it's not. Go film it either way. And I think this has a lot of the same momentum, and talking about the guerrilla style filmmaking, but it was clearly a shoot of economy. And if you look at White Line Fever, it has some of the same energy. Yeah. And I would say it also has that sense that I'm not sure this is scripted. And it feels, not a lot has been documented about these productions, as it would be expected, but it sort of has the same sense that they all got together and it was a very collaborative process with the people on set. The director has an idea what he wants, and they share some of the same aesthetics. If you go all the way back to his Nurse movies, and they're not great, but they're not devoid of aesthetic quality either. Yeah. And I think that's where the energy comes from. But it also, you need the performers to make it really work, and that's what this movie has, top to bottom. In every role, there's a game performer who's willing to embrace the eccentricities of the character and probably even add to them. I want to believe that Scatman chose that wig. What my retired pimp needs? He needs a ghastly wig.
I could see him saying, I'll do the role if you buy me a wig. Yeah. And because it was a low budget movie, they couldn't buy him a good wig, but still he ended up getting a wig out of it. I could totally see it happening. In terms of I feel like this isn't a Roger Corman movie, but it very easily could be. It has it so much in its DNA that it's just it
would have been too funny for Corman. He would have said, why I don't understand this humor. What is this? Where's the action? Where's the nudity?
Well, there's a lot of action. There's only a little bit of nudity, but there is a lot of action. The car chase when they're chasing Gator is really well done, and that's totally guerrilla style. They did not have permits for that.
And the scene that I really enjoyed was the bar brawl. Oh yeah, I thought that was well orchestrated and filmed, and some of those scenes, especially, we're used to seeing bar brawls in these movies, and the 70s, I think, must have 72 to 76 may have been the heyday of the bar brawl. Yeah. Just about every cop, gritty drama, blaxploitation, high-minded cop drama has something take place in a bar. And I think they can be messy. And this one, it had a little bit of flair to it. It had some wonderful orchestration to it. It's not a huge scene, but you can tell when it's done better than it may have been deserved.
Well, I like it because it's a mixture. Because there are some like actually really good stunts in it. I remember noting one where Jerry like picks a guy up and just throws him into the booth, and then picks him up and throws him again. And it's sort of like a thing where like that guy really did that, and like that hurt, and he did it again.
I felt that way about when a guy gets thrown through the telephone booth.
Yeah. But I was gonna say there's also like it's not, to me, officially a blaxploitation movie unless there are some like whiffed like punches where you can obviously tell they did not connect, because even in that bar, like the last guy that Isaac Hayes hits, you can totally tell that he didn't even come within like a mile of him, and the guy still goes down like a thing. And sort of getting back to the Dick Miller, who's a lawyer, needs them to go after this guy, this pimp named Gator, and they realize he has a bunch of priors, so they basically say, we're not doing it for less than $1,000. And that's one of my favorite scenes, is where they're just like basically making it clear they are not. He's desperate because basically he's going to like lose out $30,000 if he doesn't get Gator back in. And so they managed to get him to agree to $1,000, and then they go after Gator, and there's this amazing car chase, and sort of there's this really great tension they create, because they're driving in Jerry's car, but it's Jerry's wife's new car. So there's like an element of like, we cannot damage this car because it's brand new, and she will get really mad. If there's one flaw with Truck Turner, is that I guess we do have one quick scene with Jerry's wife, but I feel like for the amount of talk she gets at the beginning of the movie, she should have been a bigger character. Like I feel like especially after Jerry is killed, like we should have gotten a moment with Truck between her and that, but that could have been like sort of like they wanted to keep it down to a very lean 91 minutes. So it's possible she may have even been in the script and just decided to take her out. But then they go after Gator, they find his hideout, and you have this great scene where they basically realize that he's a heroin addict, and so they find his dealer. They hang his dealer outside of a window with a scene that I feel like there were probably some safety things done, but probably not enough. Like, it looks real enough that you feel like the guy was in actual danger hanging out that window. And then they finally find him, and then there's this blonde prostitute named Stalingrad, who is obviously dubbed because the actress who's playing her is French, and so they go after Gator. Eventually, they do have to kill him. They have to shoot him, and then Jerry gets stabbed by Stalingrad, and that is a pretty memorable appearance. I think that's the only new scene in the movie. It's just this shot of her like bouncing, like literally as she's running with the scissors to stab Jerry in the back. Because like, why would she be wearing a top when she's at home? Like, she's just lounging in black lingerie for no reason. Because all of the sex workers in this movie like are never, they're all wearing sort of like very 70s sexy clothing, which is a very different kind of clothing than the sexy clothing that we have today.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed about that I really loved in this movie was we were talking about the cuts earlier, where the army guy is like, well, if you take these handcuffs off me, you won't be saying all this stuff to me. Cuts to a scene where Truck Turner is fighting the guy in the field. Yeah. Going back to the cuts, it's like Jerry gets stabbed.
Yeah.
They could have just been like, okay, now this is over. But then it cuts to like this beautiful blonde woman just running around the corner.
Yeah.
With like blouse unbuttoned. Just boobs just swaying in the breeze. And it's just like, why? You did that.
Because they needed to get tits in the movie somewhere. and it's weird because you figure in a movie filled with this many prostitute characters that it wouldn't be that hard to sneak. But it's actually like that is the only nude scene in the entire movie. So like it's a weird show of good taste on their part. I don't know what the thing. Like maybe that's how you tell that wasn't a Roger Corman production, because I'm sure he would have insisted on at least like 3 more boobs somewhere throughout the movie. Although some of the outfits are like quite on the line. There are a couple of scenes with Nichelle where the way she's leaning, like if she moved like 1 centimeter another way, we would be seeing a lot of Uhura that we would not have expected. It's pretty stunning that way.
Yeah, it's like someone like literally just gave like the director notes and just said tits.
Yeah.
And he was like, I guess I gotta add some tits to this thing.
Well, I think it's like slash and then just side boob.
Yeah.
Correction.
So that their killing Gator sort of sets sort of the rest of the plot in motion, because Gator's sort of like main girl, his sort of like his partner is Nichelle Nichols, who is Nona the Madam, who has this one of my other, like, when you talk about the Legion of Doom pimp meeting, which I think is also a thing that happens a lot in blaxploitation movies. This isn't even my favorite one. My favorite one is the Legion of Doom pimp meeting in Willie Dynamite.
Oh.
Which
there
I think
was also kind of a Legion of Doom pimp meeting in Live and Let Die too.
Yeah. but there's this where Nona is basically like bragging about the merchandise to the pimps and talking about the girls and how much they netted, each year.
These all prime cut bitches, $238,000 worth of dynamite is Fort Knox and panties. Candy did $17,000 last year. Velvet Miss Sophisticate did 20. Used to be a Paris model. Jess and Annette each did $22,500.
How did they decide which actress got that monetary amount? And were there any upset feelings over why did she get the $37,000 and I only got like the $27,000?
That's Turnpike. She did $26,500. She's called Turnpike because you gotta pay to get on and pay to get off.
Well, we have to talk about the pimp funeral, where they have the caravan of limousines, and they're all honoring Gator by pouring like cocaine on him, except for Harvard Blue, who was Gator's main competition, and he comes on and like you get this like point of view shot of Yaphet Kotto literally spitting on us, which which I didn't know I needed in my life, but apparently is a thing I actually always wanted. And then we cut to the pimp meeting, and that's where Nichelle Nichols tells the assorted pimps that get her girls so long as they kill Truck Turner. And so that sets the rest of the plot is now the pimps are going to go after Truck. Well, 2 of them rise to the bait, and he just like kills them and just leaves the bodies in the street, and there are no consequences for him. Like you don't see any like cops investigation. None of the like them were like, oh, why did you shoot this guy? Like it's just sort of like oh no, like he's dead now, and the movie moves on, which is a sort of a thing from these movies that I really enjoy.
Yeah, there's no moment, because you kind of come to expect these in these blaxploitation movies, where it's like, damn it, Truck, I told you not to do this. I'm going to have to take away your permit. I'm going to have to take away your gun. And, you know, there's none of that. It's just like Jerry earlier in the car chase scene is just licking off shots left and right.
They literally kidnap a dude.
Yeah.
Like
and
they put no
repercussions.
Yeah. There's no repercussions.
And he gets away with it simply because he is Truck Turner.
Yeah.
And played football once upon a time.
Well, there's almost a scene like that where they're in the hospital and like their bail bondsman has been basically brutally beaten, and the cop is like, I'm gonna take care of this, and Truck Turner's like, nope, I'm gonna kill them. If after I arrest them, if they break bail, then you can go after them. And he's like, nope, I'm gonna kill them. Like, okay, guess you're gonna kill them. There's nothing I can do to stop you.
You got a permit to carry that gun. Don't do nothing to lose that permit, because the way I figured, somebody wants your ass.
I know that.
better aim straight.
We should also mention girlfriend, who is an important character. I can't remember her character's name, but she's played by an actress named Annazette Grace, and she's one of those actors in these movies who I really wish had gotten to do a lot more, because she is so good and so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like there's like
she is. Oh my God! Like I just sat there and I just was like looking and just going, why weren't you in more movies?
Yeah.
Like, my God,
the idea is that she's a habitual thief, and that she's just gotten out of a 30-day stretch. The pimps start, what he decides to do to protect her is they go into like this chain store, and he has her try on a dress. And while she's trying it on, he grabs her purse and throws balls of perfume in it. And then, like, as she comes out of the dress, he goes like, let's leave the store now. I'll go pay for it. And so she goes with her purse out, and then he goes to the security guard and goes like, she's shoplifting, and he arrests her, and so you have this great shot of her just like losing her shit as she's getting arrested, and she realizes why she's getting arrested, and like that's sort of a scene in this movie that sort of, I feel like, really elevates it.
Where's your guard?
What?
Where's security guard?
Huh?
Where's your fucking security guard?
I also have to mention when he brings her back, like, to his home after like she's gotten out of jail, and he's sort of like, you didn't even bring me flowers. He's like, well, I brought you beer. and they're like, oh, I guess I can get you dinner too. And then you find out like what her dinner is, because she's carrying a Kentucky Fried Chicken like carton.
Yeah, it's not even a bucket. It's just a carton.
Bucket. Like, and he didn't get one for himself. Like, he only got one for her. The thing that made me laugh is, like, if you know anything about like exploitation movies from this period, like, you always laugh when you see a Kentucky Fried Chicken container, because you know that the way, like, that's product placement, but Kentucky Fried Chicken didn't give them cash. What they did is they did the catering. So that meant that crew ate Kentucky Fried Chicken for breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout that entire shoot. And I always hear stories of people who worked on these films. They're like, I can't even look at Kentucky Fried Chicken now.
Wow. No, the thing that made me laugh is, like, I remember when I watched this high and in my 20s, I was cackling because I was like, this is a KFC seduction scene.
Yeah.
It's like,
and one of the best songs on the soundtrack is Played Over.
Baby, oh baby, I need you, I swear I do. No other woman can love me like you do.
And it's just like, Isaac is singing. I mean, he's singing while he's actually doing things on screen. And it's like, oh, I love you, baby. And meanwhile, this woman is eating chicken. Yeah. And he drops down to his knee, takes the chicken leg from her, and then they proceed to make out. And I'm like, the first thing I'm thinking is just like, this woman is eating. Like, you are kissing and probably eating the chicken that she has been chewing on, and you two were just making out on this damn couch.
But they still disgusting. Well, but they managed to make it work just because she's so good and also so gorgeous that you're sort of like, yeah, no, I'd probably eat chicken out of her mouth. Like,
I feel like, you know what?
But would you have to? Is that a requirement, or can we avoid the chicken?
Since we brought it up, we do have to talk about that. The soundtrack to this movie is amazing.
It is really good.
Before we started, Devon was showing off his Truck Turner vinyl that he purchased, and I'm dying of envy inside because for the first time on this podcast, I can say I don't have that soundtrack on vinyl, and
you don't get that center square on Cinema Shame Bingo this time. Yeah. Sorry, folks, you're gonna have to work harder.
I mean, it will come up again. So, spoilers for our trivia section. I will be mentioning a movie whose soundtrack I do own on vinyl, and that is part of the question.
You're the best thing that ever happened to this man.
Okay, so you're sitting there watching this thing, and you just keep seeing different things and different people, and that was one of the things that blew me away. So the scene, I believe it was a scene the scene where I believe Truck is going into the jail to visit his girl.
Yeah.
He's talking to a bald guy, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait, is that Stymie from the Little Rascals? And sure enough,
God.
it was Stymie from the
Oh my
Little
God,
Rascals.
I did not pick up on that. Like,
Yeah.
I was like happy that I picked up that the drunk in the bail bunk is the sheriff from Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, yeah, the film is full of that, like little, like if you know, or one of the pimps is Stan Shaw.
Oh,
who
yeah.
is a character actor who you see in a lot of stuff, especially in the 80s, and that like he's really young in this movie.
Very
and,
young.
So seeing him, I don't think he even has a line. Like, he's one of the pimps who tries to kill. He's the one who tries to kill Truck on the fire escape outside Truck's apartment.
Rooftop shootout.
I had to look him up because a part of me was like I knew it wasn't Dorian Harwood, but I feel like he was Dorian Harwood adjacent. Like, he was like
Right.
like that sort of actor who appeared in stuff like that in movies.
And here's another thing. Gator was actually played by Paul Harris, and I kept looking at him going, I know you.
Yeah.
I can't place you. So I looked him up last night, and pretty much Paul Harris was a professional pimp in movies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He played a pimp in the Mac. He was sort of like what I call like the Phantom Stranger pimp.
Yeah.
Who would just appear to Goldie and give him little bits of information like, oh, they're running game down on blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if you actually pull this thing off, your pockets are going to be fat like you had the mumps, you know, like that type of thing. And he also was in Uptown Saturday Night, just sitting in the rafters with Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
You know, they would just hire him just to play a pimp, and he did a great job. Because
he was in Kaplan's other blaxploitation movie and the Slams too.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I was just really impressed with the cast, all like across the board. It was pretty good.
Well, and that's like, it's always weird to me when you see like sort of bad acting in a blaxploitation movie, because they just had such a deep well to work with that sometimes I think they may have like maybe just cast an actor based on their look more than anything, and that's why occasionally you'll have performances that don't quite work. But otherwise, like, you just, you know, you had a city that was full of really talented actors who couldn't get work. So like you had like I always like I remember the most jaw-dropping thing I've ever seen was seeing Roscoe Lee Brown playing a hustler in an episode of Good Times, because he usually was really good at avoiding those kind of roles. Yeah. So the rare time he actually took on a role like that, it was like, but you're Roscoe Lee Brown. Like, you do not play the streetwise hustler. You play the erudite professor. That is the role you play. Like, or William Marshall is the classic example of that. Like, Blackula is one of my favorite blaxploitation movies because he is talking about, like, he is literally one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of his era. And he played Black Dracula because that's the only thing they would cast him in. Right. And like, that's sort of like it's sort of like I say, a bittersweet thing, because it's almost like the films are as good as they are because of it, but you also wish that they could have just been given roles truly worthy of their talent. Right. Okay, so we haven't talked about it, but we have to talk about what I think is the most iconic scene in Truck Turner, and that is the death of Harvard Blue. Wow. Like, in terms of like filmmaking, like talking about like sort of just going for it. Like, I think Kaplan, by the way, did you guys like note Kaplan's cameo in the movie? He doesn't have any lines, but there's the scene where after the bar brawl, when Jerry and Truck are in the kitchen, like sort of tending to their wounds, you see this sort of hippie, sort of long-haired chef at a sink, just like looking over at them. That's the director of the movie. That's Jonathan Kaplan. But yeah,
okay.
no, I think he decided that he was going to give Harvard Blue like one of the most epic death scenes. You have like before John Woo, we have a shootout in a hospital where they manage to like not kill any like important people. They kill all the bad guys. But then you have this great. This is one of the most amazing stunt for me in the movie is Harvard picks up this like literally 5-year-old kid and starts running with him like as sort of like his shield. And then there's a scene where he gets shot in the leg by a truck, and like you see he goes down and he brings the kid down, and it's really the kid. It's not like some like body double or some like little person in like the kid's clothing. It is very obviously they did this stunt with maybe he was like 7 or 8, but this is a small child in this action scene, and they just like fuck it, like the parents are okay with it, so let's do it.
I loved when that kid ran. That kid hauled ass out of it.
No, he was like whoever found that kid did an amazing job. Like maybe he was like one of those like Benjamin Button kids who had like a or someone who actually was looked like he was 7 or 8 but was actually 16 or something because that's hard to explain. But yeah, so he gets shot in the leg. So it looks like a bad wound, but he still manages to run pretty good. And he runs out of the hospital, and he gets shot by truck, but he doesn't go down. He just keeps moving. He has to get to his car. So you get these amazing shots of Yaphet Kotto just sort of like of his face as he's walking towards the car. And then he finally gets inside the car, and he's like, I did it. And then he just collapses onto the horn, and the horn goes. And it's like, it's hard to like, based on the description, it may not sound like much, but I remember watching it with Darren, like we were just like in awe of this truly like talk about Shakespearean, like this was a Shakespeare like villains like worthy death scene. Like it's one of my favorites in all of cinema.
You know what I thought was brilliant about that scene?
Yeah.
They dropped out the sound.
Yeah.
And as Blue is taking what he doesn't know are his last steps, he's trying to get to the car, like he is hyper focused, like I'm good. As long as I get to the car, I can drive away.
Yeah.
And I'll live to fight another day.
Yeah.
And you just see truck.
Yeah.
Slowly stalking behind him, just waiting for the drop. Like, just give me one more reason to shoot you in the back or the head or something. The director just is kind of moving the camera around so that you can kind of get this discombobulated feeling.
Yeah.
That Blue is probably having within himself at this time. And I remember just sitting there thinking about, as I was watching this almost has no business in here because it is really good and it is really affecting. Like I think it was one of the most beautifully like framed scenes I've ever seen. Like the close-ups on Yaphet Kotto's Blue as he's expiring, and it is in somebody else's hands. It would have been a laugh out loud thing, but because the sound is dropped out, the camera angles that are used, the stalking that Truck Turner is doing as Blue is expiring, it was weirdly affecting. It really was.
And the great thing is that it elevates Kotto's character in the way, because when I think about Truck Turner, I always think like, oh, like Yaphet Kotto is such a great villain, but then when you actually watch the movie, he doesn't really do that much.
No,
he's really not that like he when he's on screen he's amazing, but in terms of the actual plot, he doesn't really like do a lot of truly like villainous things. But because he's given such a monumental death scene, it's like, well, clearly he had to be a great villain, otherwise he wouldn't have gotten such a great send off. One thing I remembered that I wanted to mention. I didn't take notes, so my brain is my notes. So I'm going in and hitting the one is that one of the reasons why I think I responded to this so much, and that is like Isaac Hayes, is that one of our heroes on Cinema Shame is James Garner. He's like one of our like favorite actors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why Isaac Hayes was a recurring character on the Rockford Files. And that's because I think Truck Turner proves that he had a very similar feeling towards heroes that Garner did, is that just by like his presence was very masculine and heroic. But he had no interest in basically perpetuating the idea of like the really strong, macho, tough guy. So he was really willing to just sort of highlight the sort of facade of that and the weaknesses. Because like Garner is my favorite Hollywood leading man because he looked like a classic action hero and he fucking hated classic action heroes. He loved playing like con men and liars and just sort of, or Rockford, who was a guy who was like very much like Truck Turner, like a guy who was really like really good at his job, but a disaster at life. And I think that's one reason why Truck Turner works as well as it does, is because it's cemented by this performance of like of a guy who just is like a superhero, but also a loser at the same time.
Yeah, talking about like this Rockford connection and the messy action hero. So I just had sort of a brain drizzle. It's not monumental.
Yeah.
But let's take this however far it goes. Rockford lived in a trailer on the beach.
Yeah.
And Truck Turner is a mess at life, is prone to violence. I'm seeing how these two characters came together in the form of Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I could absolutely see that.
And now we're done. Let's just stop the podcast. This is over. Everybody go home.
You know, as this wrapped up, as the movie wrapped up, I was sitting there almost kind of mad that Isaac didn't get more acting roles.
Yeah.
Because this was his first acting gig.
But it's all like one of my favorite sort of sub-exploitation genres are what I call star-exploitation, where they take someone who is famous for one thing and go like, well, this person is famous. Let's put them in a movie and just explain. And it's sort of like a case where like, the only reason Truck Turner exists is because Isaac Hayes did the theme song for Shaft. And it's sort of like, he wasn't in Shaft, but he's probably more associated with the movie than even Richard Roundtree is, because the song is so iconic. And so some producer was like, he's a big, tough looking guy. So, and he did like, and we know the soundtrack is going to be really good and sell really well. So let's make him the star of this movie. Like in a way, it's almost like I think
it was a cost-cutting measure. It's like, well, we get the actor and the soundtrack for one low price.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like same thing with Purple Rain. It's like let's have Prince star in a movie because the soundtrack, will justify like. Even if the movie like loses, which it didn't, it was one of the top hits of that year. But it's still like we're going to make a mint off of the soundtrack, and I think
it doesn't have to be good.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be watchable. People will love it.
Yeah,
but Isaac was actually really good in this thing. Like
presence. I mean,
he had
presence,
exactly.
You're halfway there.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he did because he did the Rockford Files. There was they actually attempted to do a TV show. They did a pilot that's actually a backdoor pilot in the Rockford Files with him and Lou Gossett Jr., where they were going to star as sort of as detectives together, but that didn't take off. But he had a I think at a certain point there are people who actually probably know him better as an actor than as a musician, because especially like most people like at a certain point probably associate him as Chef from South Park than more than anything else. So I think he ended up doing pretty well. But yeah, he should have led a lot more stuff. Like after this, he didn't really get one to star in on his own. He was. I think he's 3 the Tough Way, I think it's called. He's in that one. He's Three the Hard Way. Three the Hard Way.
Okay.
And he's also he also is very memorable in parodying himself in "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker." Where, So yeah, he did okay, but I think this proves that in a just world he could have gone more the Jim Brown route and really like starred in a bunch of really great movies if they had given a chance.
Now, if you want to see those tits into you got to get plenty of rest so you can get well now. Sleep tight, brother.
Stand by, going to air.
Stand by, Phil.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by now.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
So, are we ready for trivia?
Sure.
He doesn't know what he's saying yes to. He hasn't prepared himself.
Okay, so like I said, the questions range from gimmies to like, I'm just asking this basically to bring up a trivia thing. There's no way you're going to get that. So number one, released the same year he died, but shot 5 years earlier, Isaac Hayes had a role in the fourth full-length film in one of horror's most notorious and problematic franchises. What was the film?
Oh boy, problematic franchise.
And the film actually he plays a chef, so it is sort of riffing on his South Park character.
Oof, I'm not a big horror buff, so
James might get it if he focuses on the problematic part. The first film came out in the early 80s. Then there were two sequels that were made back to back at the same time in the
Is this a return to situation?
It is.
Then it's Sleepaway Camp.
It is. Yeah, Return to Sleepaway Camp. Which is a franchise that does not play well in today's
no.
So number two, this is a sad one, but I felt like it needed to be said. Between 1970 and 1979, how many times did Nichelle Nichols appear in a movie playing a character with a name?
With a name.
It can't be zero, can it?
No. Well, Truck Turner was made, so she was in Truck Turner. So the answer is 2.
Oh.
She played Nona in Truck Turner, and of course she played Lieutenant Uhura in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But those are the only 2 movies in the 70s where she played a character with a name, and she only.
I thought we were not counting Star Trek. That's why it's my one.
No, I was totally counting Star Trek, and the only other movie she appeared in was a movie I haven't seen called Woman in the Rain, but she's only credited it in that as singer. And that's pretty astonishing. That's for like an actress as iconic as Nichelle Nichols. She only basically had two film roles in that entire decade following the end of Star Trek. Okay, this is a gimme. If you guys don't get this one, I will be very shocked. Before appearing as Isaac Hayes' doomed partner Jerry in Truck Turner, Alan Weeks also had a role in a film Hayes won an Oscar for. What is that film?
Shaft. Gotta be
of course.
Shaft.
Yeah, that is Shaft. He won for Best Original Song for Shaft. Okay, so busty French actor Annick Burrell plays the prostitute Stalingrad in Truck Turner. What is the name of the 1977 Italian sexploitation horror film in which she starred as the title character? Here is a hint that is not helpful. I own this film on Blu-ray, have the soundtrack on vinyl, and own a vintage copy of the poster, as well as several black and white stills. I thought James might get this one because I know he does know his Italian horror films, but it is a very much an Allan film, but it's also a film that is undeservedly obscure. Devon is just shaking his head.
I got nothing.
I
got nothing.
I'm thinking too hard, I think.
It was written and directed by Rino De Silvestri.
Nope, I got nothing.
It's Werewolf Woman, also known as The Legend of the Wolf Woman. It's a very Italian movie. Like she plays this character who thinks she's like the reincarnation of a woman who was murdered for being a werewolf. And so she starts killing dudes and then eventually does become a werewolf. It is, and there's
Italian werewolf movie seems very confused to me because the Spanish did that, and like the Italians were like highbrow when it came to that shit.
Well, but it's also it's like nominally a werewolf movie. It mostly is an excuse for a bunch of scenes where she's sexually assaulted. That's pretty
Italian.
much
That's Italian.
That's the Italian part. Okay, Jonathan Kaplan, the director of Truck Turner, directed the film that won this actor their first Oscar in 1988.
The Accused.
Yeah. Well, who's the actor?
Jodie Foster.
That is correct.
Wait, are you saying that the same guy who directed Truck Turner directed The Accused?
Yeah.
Well, that's a glow up.
Yeah. He also did Love Field with Michelle Pfeiffer. Probably his biggest, one of his most infamous flops was he made the movie Bad Girls, which was the all-ladies western with Drew Barrymore and Madeline Stowe that tried to be a big thing in the 90s. It didn't go well. Like he actually went on to have like a Hollywood career. Like he didn't like stay in sort of this exploitation. Like he managed to direct some like high-profile movies, but probably his most like esteemed film is The Accused.
Okay.
He has a kind of a thing going on where he made movies that were unappreciated in their box office, but went on to be sort of cult favorites. Like Unlawful Entry is one of those movies that played poorly, but eventually found sort of a cult following. And I would lump Broke Down Palace into that too. I don't remember that being well regarded, but you see that pop up on people's lists nowadays. I mean, the movie that I think I was like the first time I knew his name was Project X.
Yeah. Which is the saddest 80s movie of all time. Do you know that one, Devon?
No, I don't.
It's Matthew Broderick plays a guy who's training monkeys for like a flight simulator sort of thing, but it turns out they're deliberately like giving the monkeys cancer. So it's like basically a monkey's dying movie. So yeah, it's one of the most depressing 80s movies of all time. But it's one.
And then tries to bust him out.
Yeah. Okay, for number 6, after appearing as Truck's girlfriend, Annazette Chase. I said Grace before. It's Chase. Played Richard Pryor's wife in what many would consider the most offensive movie of the comedian's career. Name the movie. That is the show. I love that you didn't even have to think about it. I think their thinking was like, well, we're remaking a French film, so it can't be racist. Like,
right.
Yes, it absolutely can. Like that.
Nothing in that movie's bad. Nothing.
Yeah.
You bought your son a black man. Yay!
Beloved that guy, Dick Miller, has a small role in Truck Turner. What is the name of the female-led, Philippines-lensed blaxploitation movie he co-wrote for Roger Corman?
Was this the one with Pam Grier in it?
No.
Okay,
it's very much a movie they wanted Pam Grier to be in, but she was out of the. Maybe this was when she was doing the Philippines movies and they didn't get her because. But yeah, it is very much. If you hear the title, it is very much a movie you think could have starred Pam Grier. It's a dynamite title.
Is that a clue?
Yes, it is.
It's a. Oh. No, I'm not gonna get it. I don't think so.
TNT Jackson.
Oh, I knew.
I'm sure you can
Sirio
see
Santiago. I couldn't get the title.
Yeah. Okay, I because Devon is such a comic book expert, I was trying to figure out. I had to have one question that is comic book related. Best I could do is one that was comic strip related, which I feel is the same sort of zeitgeist. Both Yaphet Kotto and Scatman Crothers appear in Truck Turner, and this 1975 film based on the second comic strip led by a black female protagonist.
Friday Foster.
That is correct. It's not my favorite Prime Gear movie, but it is still a fun watch. Especially I'm talking about the whole star cast. Like anything with Godfrey Cambridge in it is going to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah, it was the one where I felt like they kind of went, well, let's let her act.
Yeah, well, that was their basically like. That was their most mainstream attempt. Like, let's see if she can actually be a star for white audiences as well as black audiences. And I think that was sort of because it didn't do too well. And I think that's why, like, not long after this, she was like in Drum as sort of like slave number 2 and had struggled for a while. It wasn't really until Quentin Tarantino brought her back for Jackie Brown that she really started getting the respect she deserved. But yeah, so check out Friday Foster. It's not great, but it's also like any Pam Grier from that movie that period is worth watching. I should add that every time Devon posts a picture of a record album on his Instagram feed, I feel a twinge of heartbreak and jealousy because right behind where he takes his record shots, he has a framed poster of Coffee. And I've told him, because he told me, like, you paid me like what, $40 for it or something.
I think it was. I'm sorry, I think it was $20.
$20 because I have as someone who has looked for this poster, I have never seen it sell for less than $400. So like you got a great deal. I haven't seen yours like in close up, so it might be a reprint. If it's a reprint, then yeah, $20 is what it's worth. But if it's actually an original vintage copy, that is like you can sell that. Yeah.
No, it is. It's got the yellowing and everything. I'm actually thinking about preserving it, so we'll see.
Yeah. That if you were to like pay for something to get linen back, that would be a poster to do it for. Okay, so this second to last one, it brings us back to Lee Chapman, who I brought up earlier, but she has a connection to something that I know. So this is a James question. Devon, you're okay if you just like are like okay. I don't know. Truck Turner's screenplay story credit is given to Jerry Wilkes, which was a pseudonym used by Lee Chapman, a glamorous former starlet who played a colleague of this famous TV spy in eight episodes of his TV series.
TV spy.
Famous TV spy. And this was before she was writing for movies in the 70s, TV movies in the 70s. So this would have been a 60s TV series.
The 60s TV series. You said singular spy.
Well, a famous she was this series, like one of the characters. She was his colleague. He is the main character. Although there is another character who is sort of his sort of partner.
Are we in the Get Smart area? Like I'm struggling to figure out who she was in the series. That's because I was guessing a series I didn't know very well.
I mean, like Get Smart, there was a movie version made eventually.
Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Yep.
Yeah, see, I can't even figure out who the heck, because that was my original thought, but I couldn't figure out who she was.
She just she played like one of the agents with Napoleon Solo. Like she was in 8 episodes of the show. Like that was So you can look her up and see like her face, and you'll know. Like I don't know. Have you seen all of the episodes of Man from U.N.C.L.E.? I've never seen a single episode of the Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I've seen all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that seems very much in your wheelhouse. So I assume that. So now you know. Now you can look her up, and you'll be like, "Oh my God, she was the one who wrote the treatment for Truck Turner."
I was really worried that it was like Girl from U.N.C.L.E. at that point when you were like with the question. It was like I can't with that series.
Okay, this one doesn't have a definitive answer, but I felt like it had to be asked, and this is more in line with a James Patrick question: who would win in a fight, Truck Turner's Harvard Blue? Or Live and Let Die's Mr. Big?
One-on-one cage match, or do we get to include Hench in this?
Yeah, Jeffrey Holder is not involved in this.
Oh,
Also,
he doesn't count. But Whisper, although he wasn't very effective.
So yeah, cage match, 1-on-1.
Oh.
If the two different Yaphet Kotto villains are face to face, who do you think is taking them down? I will say that Mr. Big, also known as Katanga, he has an equally memorable death in Live and Let Die. It's not as artistic,
no.
But in terms of memorable, it's pretty freaking memorable. If
you don't know, he explodes. He blows up like a balloon, and he explodes.
I was using, like Devon, you've seen Live and Let Die, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I always say it's my all-time favorite Bond movie, and there's about this much difference. It's up here, and my second favorite Bond movie is right here because blaxploitation Bond. I'm sorry, that is the only Bond that counts as far as I'm concerned. Also, Jane Seymour as Solitaire is the hottest Bond girl. Sorry, that is just indisputable fact.
And I think it also boasts the single best tactical James Bond garment in the original black turtleneck.
Yeah.
Tactical gear.
Yeah.
That Roger Moore wears in that. Daniel Craig tried to bring it back, but it wasn't the same on Craig as it was in 1970s Roger Moore.
So you guys seem to be you guys don't want to give me a definitive answer.
I'm giving you. I think Mr. Big bloviates so much that he's going to talk Harvard Blue into submission. I think physically it would be a long drawn out fight, but the verbiage would ultimately subdue Harvard Blue. Harvard Blue doesn't have that many words in his vocabulary. I think it's Mr. Big.
I'm going to go with Mr. Big too. And for one reason, I know that we weren't necessarily calculating henchmen into it.
Yeah.
But just from a HR point of view, Harvard hired one of the worst henchmen of all time, Val, and his horrible
we didn't talk about the insurance company.
Yeah,
I love how there are a couple of guys in the insurance company you could see I could see them being professional hitmen who earn this sort of big money for this sort of thing, but there are also guys who just they were clearly just friends with Jonathan Kaplan. That's the only explanation for why they're in this movie.
But yeah, Harvard Blue just could not choose effective henchmen to save his life.
Well, I think there is. I would go Mr. Big too, just because, like I said, Harvard Blue in retrospect just seems like a great villain because he has such a great death scene. But in reality, in terms of what he actually does in the movie, he's really not that effective, and he's really not that good.
You're coming on so strong, you're going to need an act of Congress or the United States Army to get Truck Turner off your ass. Now, I'm going to be a father to some orphans.
We always end up coming back to something that we forgot. We did not talk about the death of poor Francis the cat.
It's too hard. I don't.
Clearly, the shot clearly involved the real cat and just hanging there, and it's a very quick shot, but it's
You know what? After the movie was over with, I literally Googled, did they kill Francis the cat? Because,
well, don't bury it. What happened? Did they kill the cat?
Francis the cat is hung.
Yeah.
They just hung the poor cat.
But he's hung by his legs. It's not around his neck. If you actually look closely, I could see them they may have doped Francis up, and so he may have been sleepy time cat, and that's why he's just sort of laying there. That's how I figured they probably did it.
Yeah, because we were talking about sort of guerrilla filmmaking. I was like, were they gorilla enough to actually just kill a cat?
Yeah. Is this like that would be an Italian movie? If this was an Italian movie,
once
that
again,
cat is fucking dead.
Very Italian, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad to hear that it looks like Francis actually survived Truck Turner. He did what Harvard Blue couldn't do, and survived Truck Turner.
Well, I am again so grateful to Devon for. It turns out, I guess, like in retrospect, this wasn't sort of like one of the kind of movies that we usually talk about because you had seen it a couple times before. But it's still like the fact that we got a chance to talk about it, and I think if you haven't seen it, like we spoil the shit out of it because we are a spoiler positive podcast. We believe in the power of the spoiler. We think it's a good thing, not a bad thing. But if you still if you haven't seen it, you absolutely must. Even if you have like even the faintest like sort of appreciation of this genre, yes, it is. There are things you are going to hear that are extremely offensive, but you just have to, accept that was the period it was made, and that's just, how it is. But
it's context. I mean, if you're signing up to watch a blaxploitation film, anything goes. In which direction? We're not, it's a true reflection of the socio-political landscape in the time, unfiltered in a way that you don't get outside of the genre.
Tell us about the Top Guys podcast, which you've just recently started up and sort of should get people listening to.
Thanks for asking. Top Guys podcast is a pop culture podcast that I do with one of my best friends, Omar. We've been friends 35 years. And Chris Scott, who I have known for close to 15. And it is just a pop culture podcast where the three of us get on there and we just talk about what we're liking and what we're not liking about pop culture. Topics range from like this week's episode, toy supremacy, to wherever our hearts may take us.
I haven't listened to it yet. Where did you land on toy supremacy?
I actually hosted the thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But what happened was, out of the toy lines that we actually mentioned, Transformers came out on top.
See, I never had Transformers in my house.
They didn't make it to Canada.
Well, they did, but I just, for whatever reason, because like we were all like based on like whatever our mom was willing to buy for us, and for some reason she didn't like Transformers and she didn't like Masters of the Universe.
Oh wow!
So like we had G.I. Joe and we had Superpowers, and so I think the Superpowers line was one of my major entries to the DC because they, I watched the Super Friends show. Right. So those are probably like if I had been invited to that episode,
we will have you on someday.
That is exactly what I was fishing for, and I'm glad you took the bait.
Yeah, like I said, pop culture podcast where we just talk about whatever is going on in pop culture.
But where did we land on GoBots? Like, if we're talking Transformers, it
okay,
come up.
Now if I were not hosting this, that particular episode, because usually Omar hosts the episodes, I do the more like sort of game showy type things. I absolutely would have included the GoBots, because the GoBots actually at one point had an this is horrible, had an ex-Nazi limousine as one of the characters, and I wish I could remember his name, but it was something like Dare.
And he was one of the good guys.
And yeah, he was one of the good guys.
Here's the thing. And this might get me kicked off of all future podcasts, but the GoBots show, the cartoon, was superior to the Transformers cartoon. But the movie Transformers was a far superior show or like piece of media than the Transformers series. So the GoBots just get obliterated by history because everybody says the Transformers were the victors without question. Like, no. Let's be clear. The GoBots had the show.
I think that's your most controversial opinion.
It is.
I feel like we need to investigate this in a future something or other. But maybe a bonus episode.
We're watching the entire runs.
I've never seen the Transformers movie, and I've never seen the GoBots movie. So that might be a very special episode.
Well, there was no GoBot. There was a GoBots like series of movies. They're like mini series, not like
I know there was I know they did
challenge.
There was a theatrical challenge of the GoBots. Yeah,
that was the actual title. Challenge of the GoBots.
We'll let you go.
Just like they didn't have Orson Welles, so that was all their ding.
But it did have Frank Welker. Every cartoon in the 80s had Frank Welker.
Well, I think the only reason why Transformers, the movie, is so lauded is because for strictly sales reasons, they decided to kill off every character people cared about so they could sell new toys of the new characters. So I think that's why, I think it's because, kids were traumatized by Transformers, the movie, and that's why it's so remembered.
Not gonna lie, I was fucking shocked.
Yeah. No, my podcast co-host Chris, huge Transformers fan. I think that has scarred him for life.
It's true.
Yeah.
Our theme song was written and recorded by Preacher Boy. Hear more from the godfather of alt blues at preacherboy.com. You can find us on Twitter at CinemaShame and on Instagram at CinemaShame Podcast.
I'll take Wells to ring my bells. Rolling Stones got the bone. Spin with Jones about to moan. Walking and going will follow and land the feet. Joe Angley who called Billy Young a silly one and gassed around the Ghost Man's and gave your Quentin about the vine and Tarantino, evil Cino, and they please to Cortez to stop her and pull a temper and whip that shot. Ridley Scott, blue tie, but not on Spike Lee's yacht. Wearing white, but from out night. His whole wrist legs off the same. His sense of looks to melt. Brooks, she was throwing rocks at Howard Hawks. Hiding in a hole with Colin Joel, which was hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Steaming Joe, man, 424 had hit the hood of C. Eastwood, that well-known meanie who like Fellini thought absurd. Soderbergh's claim that famous Harold Ramis was the greatest director in the history of cinema.
You have chosen wisely.